I was feeling sort of Halloweenish, even though it's still about a month and a half away. But you can never be ready too soon. Good morning, everybody. It's Stephen here for Bland Designs, and this is my weekly vlog number 131 for Monday, September the 2nd, 2019. Yes, it's Labor Day here in Canada, and I think in other parts of North America as well. And this always marks basically the unofficial ending to summer and the startup of school. They're going back. And yeah, this would be the time of the year. This was the day I hated the most when I was a teacher. Not because I hated necessarily going back to work or anything like that. It was just the anxiety of new kids. In some cases, it was new classes I had been prepping for over the summer. Just the whole anticipation, the excitement of a brand new school year and getting into things again. Of course, there's also the anticipation of some of the negative things. And in my case, for me, the worst part of my job was marking, because I was an English teacher and the marking never seemed to end. But for the most part, I used to get excited, so excited I could not sleep on Labor Day night. And traditionally, I had a tradition that I started way back with a friend of mine, way back before I ever met Walter, before I had really gotten into the profession very far, my first few years, where we'd go to the show on Monday night, on the Labor Day night, just to get out, sort of the last wahoo of summer before it was back to the grind. And kind of keeping that tradition up, even though it's been 7 years now that I've been retired. Wow, where has the time gone? So Walter and I are going to the show tonight. We're going to see Spider-Man. Will I sleep tonight? Oh yeah, I'll sleep. I didn't used to. And I used to have teacher dreams, which are usually spooky, and mine usually involved me standing up in front of a classroom of kids that I didn't know, and I'm naked. They're not, I am. And for some reason, I'm the only one in the room that's noticing that I'm naked, so I'm trying to be nonchalant about it. Meanwhile, carry on with the general business of a classroom. Weird. Very weird. But anyways, so to all my teacher friends out there that are going back, I hope you have a great school year. Good luck, and it is nice to be retired. Just had to say that. Okay, so you saw in the teaser at the very beginning a couple of things I've been working on. I'm not going to show them to you in any detail yet because, quite frankly, they're not done and I don't know what I'm going to do with them. But I've been embroidering some Halloween designs on some fat quarters, and I think my goal is to take those, create sort of a wall hanging that I'll put on the door when we get closer to Halloween. Maybe. We'll see how that all works out. I have so many projects going right now, and I think maybe later today I will do another edition of the Idiot Quilter to talk about some of my projects and a few other things that I don't talk about here on this vlog, because it's been a little while since I've done an Idiot Quilter, over a week or so, so I should do that today too. I'm probably procrastinating because I need to get down to quilting 3 quilts, and one of those quilts is right behind me. Now, this is the quilt that I mentioned to you before that a friend of mine commissioned me to make him a quilt, a throw for his couch. And so this is it. I had a kit. It's Tim Holtz fabric. So here's where we cross over the line between crafting and quilting. And at first, I thought this was going to be a pretty simple quilt, but it wasn't as simple as I thought. I learned a few new tricks with this one, which is great, but I'm really happy with the way it's turned out. These are the colors he likes. He's into vintage, antique-y looking things, and I really like what I did with the back. With the back of this quilt, I pieced the back together, so I had some of the fabric left over from the front, and as you can see, I can't get it all up here, but there it is. I created this pattern in the center with the leftovers and then filled out the rest of the space with some of the fabrics I used in the border in the front of the quilt. So I think it's going to be quite nice when it's done. All I need to do, it's layered now, that's why you see the cotton batting hanging out the edges. What I have to do next is actually quilt it. Now, because this is a quilt for a friend, oh yeah, and when I say commissioned, he was prepared to offer to pay for my fabric and my time, and I said, no, you're a friend. So this is actually the first quilt that I've made that I'm intending to be a gift. And I have to do more of them because, as I've said in the past, I've made over 21 quilts in a year and a half. What am I going to do with 21 quilts? I don't live in a log cabin. The house is well insulated. I've got central heating. So I think it's time to start making them and thinking about people that I'm going to give them to. So this is a good one to break the ice with. But I am not going to do free motion quilting on this one. I'm not confident enough in my skills at this point to do free motion quilting to give a quilt to somebody. But I will do walking foot quilting, and I think I'm just going to go with a simple wavy line like I've done on a few other ones in the past. It's a tried and true method. It comes out, it looks nice, and less chance of me botching it up, he says, knowing very well that he will botch something. Anyways, that's a project I got to get on with, along with a bunch of other things that I'm doing too. But if you're interested, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that kind of thing in my next Idiot Quilter, whenever I get around to putting that together. My plan is probably today. I'll get to it. It may not go up today. Okay, moving on. So, YouTube channel of the week. I'm very fascinated by this lady. She's English, somewhere in the UK. I'm not sure exactly where. She calls her channel The Last Homely House. And it's just, she just does everything. I found her because when I was searching for quilting videos, that's what she did. But she does pottery. She does beekeeping. In her latest episode, which I found really interesting, she was showing how she harvests the honeycomb from her beehives. It almost made me want to, give that a shot someday. Save the bees, eat the honey, that kind of stuff. Only problem is I'm kind of afraid of bees. Afraid of being stung. It's not so much honeybees that bug me, it's hornets. Well, you wouldn't be cultivating those, would you? But anyways, take a look at this video. This week's YouTube channel is called The Last Homely House East of the Sea. Now, if the title doesn't get you, the content will. This is a lady somewhere in the UK who is a real crafter. She does quilting. That's how I found her originally. But she does a variety of other types of crafts and hobbies. She does pottery. She does card making. She does bookbinding. She has a whole list of things that she's constantly working on. And I find her YouTube channel very interesting, informative, and she just seems like the kind of lady I'd like to meet and sit down and have a cup of tea with and craft with. So check out The Last Homely House East of the Sea. So do check out The Last Homely House, and I have the link for that YouTube channel in the notes below. Link for Stephen and Walter, the latest one. This week we were kind of at a loss as to what to talk about. Nobody's been giving us any topics. So if you're one of my regular watchers, please, anything that you think might be of interest to other people when we get into a discussion. It was a fairly serious discussion this week. We were talking about the value of higher education. And do you really need a university degree to be happy and to have a decent job? And so we talked about the pros and cons of all of that, and we had a lot of input from the people who watched. So if you're interested in that, check it out. The link's below. And I have another link down there. It's called Trapped in a Craft Store. Now, I came upon this by accident, and it's a comedian, stand-up comedian, and it's a hilarious clip. And I'm sure all of us crafters can definitely appreciate what he's talking about. He talks about it from the point of view of a husband who's a non-crafter going with his wife to Michael's. But it is funny, and it's funny because I think we can all relate to it. So, if you want a little 7-minute giggle, check out the link to Trapped, what's it called again? Trapped in a Craft Store. He also has another one that goes along with it that you'd probably find in the same area. About craft craft projects or something like that, which is also equally as hilarious. Okay, and some other links I have down there. I have a link to my blog, and I have a link to Chatterbox Quilts. Now, you've heard me mention Chatterbox Quilts before, and I'll be talking a little bit more about the owner of Chatterbox Quilts, Kim. She's great. We saw her on the weekend. I'm going to talk about that a little later on in the video. But I thought I'd give her channel a plug. It's for quilters. She has a membership site as well called The Quilter's Way, and I've put the link below, which I am a member of and thoroughly enjoy. And I don't usually get involved in anything that you have to pay a monthly fee for. But this one is worth the money. It's not expensive by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's about $11 US a month. So for Canadians, it works out to $13 and something a month. Good value for your money. Kim is an excellent teacher. She has tons of tutorials that are very clear, very professional. Plus, we have a chat room, and there's several of us in there already that have become friends, even though we've never physically met. And twice every month, we have a Zoom meeting. And a Zoom meeting, it's sort of like using Skype, except I think it's better. You can see everybody on your computer. The software is free, easy to operate, and we all get together for a live session twice a month. It's usually on the 2nd and the 4th Friday. I believe those are the dates. And it starts at 2 o'clock Mountain Time. So for me, Eastern Time, it's 4 o'clock. You'd have to do the math for your area of the world. So it's 2 o'clock Mountain Time. Work it forwards or backwards, whatever works for you. That's for members only, but we do have a good time, and we are very supportive, and really I have learned a lot from this in the past year that I've been a member. So I highly recommend it. So check that out. There's a trial membership you can try as well on there. So it's all explained on that website. So just check it out and see what you think. Okay, that takes us to what's pissing me off this week. It's election time here in Canada. We're having a federal election in October. And that also means that you're now going to get the telephone surveys. Each party or polling company calls you up and wants to ask you a few quick questions. Now, I have a problem with that. Why aren't they interested in my opinion the rest of the year? The only time I get these phone calls is in an election year. Okay, so we know then who's sponsoring the surveys. The companies that call up always have a very long technical name for themselves, which I think is just a disguise for whatever political party is sponsoring them. The questions, this is what pisses me off. This is not an accurate survey, for sure. The questions are loaded, and they're biased towards the answers they want. And I refuse to buy into that. When it comes up and it says, "Hi, we're doing a survey," I just hang up. Or sometimes when I do the survey, hoping that it's going to be obvious that they're going to ask me a question like, in this election, would you vote for, and I'm hoping it's from the party that I won't vote for, which is the Conservative Party, for God's sakes. It's the Canadian version of the Republicans, okay, for the Americans out there. Certainly not voting for them, but I will take the opportunity to say, "Oh God, no, I wouldn't vote for your party in 1,000 years, and here's why." And usually they cut me off. Yeah, so I see that they're really not concerned about my opinion, are they? Unless it agrees with their opinion. So that's what pisses me off about these surveys. And then they take this information and they generate advertisements or news blips or something like this, making it sound like, oh yeah, the majority of people we polled were in support of this or that or the other thing, or didn't want this or wanted this, whatever works with what the party platform is. So really, what's pissing me off about this kind of stuff is the unreliability of these surveys. You know, you really don't know who's going to be in power until they're in power. It's as simple as that. There's a lot of people who know, like me, exactly who they're voting for. No ifs, buts, or ands. But then there's a whole group of people out there that are the undecided voters. And that's what they use these polls for. To convince the undecided voters that they should vote in a certain way. And I don't know, but first of all, if you're an undecided voter, I would say that you are somebody who, quite honestly, doesn't know what they're doing voting. And that makes them dangerous, because it's the undecided voters that can sway an election to one party side or the other. If they're going in with a gut reaction or whatever, or if it's the last thing they heard that sounded positive, that might be who they vote for. They're not necessarily using their intelligence. How can you be an undecided voter? Really? What do you mean by that? I think if you're an intelligent thinking person, you know what each party is up to. You know their tricks. It's not your first rodeo, unless, of course, this is the first time you've ever voted in your life, like you're 18 years old or whatever. Maybe. I can see that being a problem for young people. But those of us that have been around the block a few times and have seen multiple elections, I don't think there's any excuse for being undecided about it. And, if they come to your door and you say you're undecided, and they're for a particular party, well, they'll try to convince you right there on the doorstep why you should vote for them. Of course. So it pisses me off the way politicians manipulate people. You know something? I don't think there should be advertising for different political parties. I think what they should do at the beginning of an election, each party should have to put out in publication, either in print form or electronic form, or both, their platform, exactly what they stand for and what they intend to do. There it is. No ifs, buts, or ands. Can't change it at the last minute. You can't manipulate it. It's just point, 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 point. Send that out to everybody on the voters lists for each party and let the voters do their thing from that. This door-to-door canvassing, the signs on the lawn, the attack ads that they put against each other, each party against the other on TV. Yeah, in some cases, these are sort of entertaining. But on the other hand, really, it's biased, it's manipulative, and really for those people who don't think about politics, don't think about what our governments are doing, they can have a big say in the way an outcome of an election occurs. And that's scary. Because, well, you want an example of this kind of thing? All you have to do is look at south of the border for us. And why did Trump get into power when everybody else thought it was going to be Hillary? Think about it. Okay, so that's what I'm pissed off at this week. Moving on. Where are we going from here? Okay, I bought a pile of fabric for a class I'm about to take. I'm not going to show it to you right now. I might show it on the Idiot Quilter. It's fabric. I'm going to start a new class next Monday. So, of course, I needed my fabric. I don't have the pattern yet, but there was a sample of the quilt we're going to be making in the store. So I took a picture of it, and that's how I figured out my colors. Because quite frankly, the one they had on display in the store, I hate the colors that are in it. But then that's not uncommon. I kind of hate the colors in a lot of different quilts and want to do my own thing. But that's the beauty. That's the creative part of being a quilter. So anyways, I bought the fabric. I bought it at the store up in Aurelia that I'm going to talk about a little later on. Okay, so not going to show that to you, just let you know I bought that. I do have some little specialty rulers on order from the Missouri Star Quilt Company. They haven't arrived yet. And do I have anything else? Nope, I don't. Haven't bought anything else. Oh, I did buy... Oh, where are they? Give me just a second. I got to take off my microphone. Okay, when I was up in Aurelia on the weekend, which is a place an hour and a half north of us, there is a great scrapbook store up there called Paper Capers. And, way back probably over a year ago or more, might be moving on to 2 years, I did do a review of that store on my vlog then. But I don't buy a lot of scrapbooking stuff anymore, as you know. But But when I was in there, they usually have some unique things that I can't often get. And some of that is Tim Holtz products. This time, I don't think I bought any Tim Holtz products, but they had some stuff for steampunk. And I do like steampunk, and it's great for mixed media. So I picked up a few things. So one of those things was this little package of buttons, but they're very ornate, as you can see. And then there were some keys, some other type of buttons. And these look like little corner pieces. Then they had some rub-ons, some stickers with a steampunk kind of theme. So I picked these up. And then these aren't really steampunk, but I just like them. And like I need more rubber stamps, like I need a kick in the head. But I saw these, and I think they're made by some lady local to the area. But it's basically, you know, collage ones where she's taking old pictures and whatnot. And I just thought these would make some really interesting mixed media projects. So what I've done is, because I know if I throw all of this stuff into my stash, I will forget I have it and I won't use it. So what I've done is I've put it all into this little basket. And this little basket is sitting on my craft desk to remind me that I want to use these. Otherwise, they're going to go into my stash and get lost forever in there. So that's my theory. Like, I have a lot of projects, okay? And sometimes it's just a little overwhelming. Certainly can't say I'm bored. So let's have some coffee. And let's move on. And let's talk about this week's book called Simply Graphic. This is by that company which I've been talking about before. Not Memory Keepers, We Are Memories is the name of the company that produced this book. They are no longer in they no longer exist. Okay, but the book is available. But what's this about? Simply Graphic. Well, you know, this is a very modern way of doing your scrapbook pages. Clean lines, minimalist effects, that kind of thing. And a lot of people get a little uptight when they're first getting into scrapbooking because they see all these beautiful pages people do and they think, I can't do that. I don't know where to start. Well, something like this, anybody can do. It's just basically taking straight lines and making art out of them. And it can be very, very beautiful. So if you're interested in graphic design of scrapbooking, this book might be for you. When I bought this book, it cost me $29.99 Canadian, according to the back of it. But I looked it up on Amazon, and I've got the link for it in the show notes. It ranged anywhere from $1 to $24, depending on where you got it. And some of those were used copies as well, and there's nothing matter with the used copies. I've always had great success, as I've said before, on Amazon, buying used copies of things, and for a lot less money. So you'll find a link for this in the show notes below, and it's good. It's good. What more can I say? Okay, so what's that take us to now? All right, so this is the next part in the iCraft Tote Folio album project that we've been putting together, the kit. And in this segment, I'm going to show you how I put on the background papers for each of the pages and the covers. So in the previous segment, I showed you how to put together the basic album itself without any decorations. And as I told you, in the kit, it comes with two versions of the album, or at least they're not versions. They're both the same album, but one's in black cardstock, one is in craft cardstock. So I always use one of them out of the kit as my prototype to figure out all the if, buts, and ands of folding it. And I use the second one, and in some cases, some of the kits come with three. I use that as my final product. So I've already gone ahead and added my background papers to this. The reason I've done this off camera is because, one, it takes quite a while, and two, you've already seen me put together the album itself, so you know how it goes together. The reason I put put this one together, though, off camera, besides the fact that I had to cut all of my background papers, and I'll talk about that in a minute and how I did that, is that I also wanted to put the papers on before I assembled the album. I thought it would be easier, and it is, but there's a couple of little quirks which I'm going to point out to you now. So, as you can see, I used some colorful scrapbooking paper, and the collection that I used, if I find the cover here, bear with me for a second, I can't find the cover. Here it is. This was a paper pad I've had for a long time. Got it for a ridiculously low price, $6.99, which was pretty good. I think I bought it at a surplus store, actually. But doesn't matter where I got it. I thought I'd use it. And it has some really nice floral papers, and some of them have this foil-like finish to them. So that's what I used for my album backgrounds, or the page backgrounds. And I always like to use one paper pad, because then I know all the papers are coordinated and it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. So I cut all of my background papers to size. I did some measurements, and on the back of the packaging that the Tote album comes in, there are measurements for you, but I find those very unreliable. I measured them myself, subtracted a 1/4 inch from the outside edges, so I'd have a little bit of a border of the craft coming through. And I put those measurements and designed it all in my Cricut Maker, and let my Cricut Maker cut them out for me. Now, you don't have to have a Cricut Maker to do this. You could do it with your paper trimmer. I just like to put it in my Cricut Maker in case sometime in the future I want to do one of these again. I've got all the cuts already in an automated format. After I cut them out, I went around the edges of everything with some Distress Oxide Walnut Stain ink. You could use any color you like. That's the one I used. I just like the distressed look, and I also did it to all the edges that are exposed on the basic foundation as well. So it's subtle. You can make it as bold as you wish. I like it to be a little bit more subtle. And so then I just used, for the most part, double-sided tape and placed down all my pieces. And you can see that I've got a little bit of about a 1/4 inch or so of a border all the way around, exposing the foundation. Now, when I did the cover on here and had these two little tab pieces, as you remember, I decided that I'd like to keep these as a magnetic closure. So I put a couple of magnets, pretty strong magnets, on these flaps. Now, I could have buried these underneath the paper, except these are fairly thick. Show it from the side. You see, they're fairly thick, so there would be a bulge. And I really don't mind the fact that they are exposed. Also, it makes it easier for lining them up, so when you click it, they stay. You're not shifting all over your paper. And these are strong magnets. And I suggest you use strong magnets, because this is going to get heavy. So on the inside, then, we have our pages. Just flip it over here. Now, this is where I'm going to point out one of my problems. I had forgotten when I put the first album together that they had these flap pieces that were sort of served as reinforcements, and that I should have glued those down, folded them over, glued them down before I put on my background papers, because, as you can see, I've covered up the edges of my background papers. Now, upon looking at this, I don't really mind that right now, because that's going to get disguised as I embellish the inside of this album anyways. But if it is a concern to you, then just make sure that as you're putting the album together, that these flaps go down first before you put on your background paper, so your background paper will hide all of these. You'll also see here are my pages, and this is what took the time, prepping these, cutting them, going around the edges with the ink, getting the tape on beforehand, and putting them in. But it's looking pretty good. And the other thing I find too is these albums, when you first put them together without any background papers, oops, little problem there. Now, I use double-sided 1/8 inch tape for these hinges, and I'm thinking maybe I should have used a liquid glue for those, because I have a feeling this may present me with a problem later on. But I'm not going to worry about that at the moment. Um, what was I saying? Oh, lost my train of thought. Well, right off the track. But before that happened, this is what took a lot of time. It's just getting these cut out, getting them all inked, because I had ink all the way around the edges, get them glued down to the page, and as I said, I use double-sided tape. You might want to use wet glue for this. Now, depending on the wet glue you use, it could warp your pages. But nevertheless, once you've got, see, that's coming off. So I do have a little problem. So I may have to go over these with a little bit of wet glue to keep them down. But as I said, as you get all of these background papers on, you're strengthening your album. So when you first put it together, it's going to seem a little flimsy, but once you get the paper on it, it's going to stiffen it up. Okay, so basically, that's all there is to it in the decorating it. And I've got the little handle on the top. Now the handle on the top, I forgot about this piece, and the way it comes is you fold this up, and it's just the craft cardstock. So I just used a piece of washi tape. Now the washi tape will not come off because I used a piece of, I think it's 1/2 inch double-sided tape along this. This was flat before I got it curved up, and just laid the washi tape on top of it, because some washi tapes are stickier than others. And since the idea is you hold it by it, I didn't want that peeling off. Also, I glued this down with Gorilla Glue because there's going to be a fair amount of weight here, and you don't want that coming off either. The other thing too is you notice there's a bit of a curve, and I didn't do a really good job of that, but it takes time to work it in. I just used my bone folder to just curve it over top, like you would if you were taking a piece of ribbon, curling ribbon, or taking a strip of paper and you want to give it a curl. You know, just put it over your bone folder and run it through it a couple of times, and that gives you the curve. So overall, I have it all decorated, well, the basic decoration. So the next thing I have to think about is the embellishing. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do on these pages. Now I can see right here I have potential for a pocket, possibly a small pocket here, and another pocket here. But on these pages, I think I'm going to do a combination of spots where there can be journaling cards, so there may be some more pockets. I might do a few little mini fold-out albums like I've done before, where you attach it here and it comes out as an accordion fold. Because I do have a fair amount, let's just close it here. If you look in here, there's a fair amount of room for expansion. So if I put a few of those in, I think it would work all right. Again, I may have to reinforce these pages because I can see that some of them are coming up a little bit, so I may go over those with a little bit of the Gorilla Glue, and that'll just make them secure. So in the next segment, I'm going to get into the final embellishing. So next week, we'll do the final embellishing of that kit. Okay, moving on. Update on my mother. She's fine. There's been some problems lately. It's more been in her attitude or her emotional state. We went over to see her last Tuesday. Always go on a Tuesday. And she was in bed when we got there. And I hate that when I get over there and find her in bed. Because is she really sick, or is she looking for sympathy? Yeah, I know. I'm a hard person. You think that I don't care about how my mother feels. No, I do. That's what bugs me. Especially when she plays these games. And she was playing a game last Tuesday. She's in bed. And I went, oh, Mom, you're not feeling well? Well, I don't know. I hate that. That's how she says everything. Well, I don't know. Well, if you don't know, who does? Okay? That, of course, is going on in my head. These are not things I say to my mother. Okay? So I said, so what is it? Start to do the diagnosis here. You got a headache? No. Is your stomach upset? No. Have you thrown up? No. So, well, I don't know. Well, Mom, well, I think I've got a touch of diarrhea. Okay, that happens. Well, why do you think you have diarrhea in terms of where do you think you got that? Was it something you ate? Well, I don't know. I said, well, I think I'll go down and I'll talk to the head nurse. Now, she doesn't like that when I say that. And I know she doesn't like it, but I'm going to check it out with them because they're the people working with her every day, and they're really good. and they keep copious notes about everything. So I went down to see this one. And now I call her the head nurse. I don't think that's actually what her title is, but she seems to manage the floor whenever she's on. And I think her name's Nicole, but I can't remember. I like her, though, because she's very businesslike. She has compassion. She cares about the people she's looking after, but you can't pull the wool over her eyes, which is what my mother likes to try and do and can't get away with it with her, and she doesn't like her as a result. In fact, Nicole, whether that's her name or not, she actually said to me, I don't think your mother likes me particularly. And I said, well, my mother doesn't like anybody that's going to give her orders. So, in other words, you're not that special. If my mother can't get her own way, she doesn't like you. Simple as that. And I said, but my mother's in bed. She's in bed. She said, yeah. She said, she should be up. I sent down, there was a couple other people here. They went down to get her up out of bed. And I said, well, she found the weakest link. Because one of the nurses that came in to get her up, help her dress and everything, I guess my mother told her she's not feeling well, and the nurse decided that she just let her lay in bed. Most of them there won't do that. Unless you're exhibiting signs of real illness, they like to get you up. And it's for your health. They want to get you up and dressed and around because they want to keep your muscles going. They want to keep your blood flow going. And really, they don't want you moping about in bed feeling sorry for yourself all day. They want you to get out there and do what you can. So I said, yeah, she says she's got a touch of diarrhea. And she says that has not been brought up today. Nobody has said anything. She didn't say that to anybody else. And, I think, too, sometimes the nurses go a little bit on the defensive when, you're saying, and I try to always word it in such a way that, look, I'm not accusing anybody of anything here. I know what my mother is like. And so I think I've got a good rapport there with this particular nurse. We seem to see eye to eye on things. And she says, well, she's not going to be in bed for long. We're getting her up for lunch. And the whole bit. And sure enough, I went back down into the room and said to Mom, well, Mom, they don't seem to know that there's anything wrong with you. And I don't get into an argument. I just say that the way I did. And I said, and apparently they're coming down here in a bit to get you up so you can go down for lunch and that. My mother would love to be just pampered and lay in bed all day and have people wait on her. That's the problem. And so I don't think I was very popular with my mother at that point, but she's got to get up and go. It's simple as that. It does frustrate me though, and it does upset me when I see her like that. I don't want my mother to not have a life, basically. But then again, well, how much can I do? It's her life. You have to be accountable and take your life into your own hands and look after it, because nobody's responsible for anybody else's happiness, quite frankly, out of it. Now, I know she could be a little depressed right now, and somebody wrote to me yesterday, dropped a comment in, because I was mentioning this in Stephen and Walter Live, that my mother might be lonely. Yeah. Although there's people all around her, but of course the people around her are in different mental states, kind of a thing. Yeah, she probably is. I mean, it's not like my sister and I neglect her. We don't. We're both over there at least once a week. I call her every other day on the phone. She knows that, if anything, whatever she needs, I will look after. She knows all of this. But there's only so much time I can spend with her, too, to keep her amused, right? She's got a TV. There are activities in the home. She just has to take advantage of those activities. And sometimes she does and sometimes she doesn't. So I think we're going through a phase right now. Maybe because, I already mentioned the fact that this is the time of the year, although it's been 2 weeks since my dad's birthday and her birthday, and my dad's gone now. And yes, that took a lot out of my mother. The death of my father, of course it did. But it was 5 years ago. So, life goes on. But anyways, that's how she is. So, for the most part, she's fine. And what else did we do this week? Oh, yes. So I mentioned Chatterbox Quilts and the Quilter's Way and all of that and Aurelia. Well, why am I talking about those? Well, on the weekend, we went up to this town called Aurelia, which is about an hour and a half north of us, because Kim, the owner-operator of the Quilter's Way and Chatterbox Quilts, was at the local quilting store called Thimbles and Things in Aurelia to do a meet and greet and to give a talk about free motion quilting. So Walter and I went up for that. Now, I really didn't expect there to be a lot of people at this because it's the long weekend. People are, taking off to their cottages or whatever for the weekend. But lo and behold, there were 19 of us there for this talk, which had to have pleased Kim a great deal. Store owner too, because, when people come into your shop, they probably leave with something. I certainly did, like $245 worth of fabric. But it was very, very nice. Kim gave an excellent talk about the scariness of free motion quilting and how to get over that. And it was nice to see her as well because she does live in Calgary. The reason she happens to be out here right now is because she was on a conference with her husband, and then her husband, he still works, had to fly back to Calgary to go to work, but Kim was staying out here for a few more days because her family, she comes from this area. So does her husband, basically, and her parents live in Bracebridge. And so, of course, she was there to visit them as well. And Bracebridge is very close to Aurelia. So it was nice to see her. I mean, I see Kim all the time and chat with her all the time on the Quilter's Way, her membership site. But it's nice to see her in person again, because it's been about a year that they were out here the last time, and that's how I met Kim, was through Chatterbox Quilts, the Quilter's Way, and it's just a coincidence that her family lives very close to us, and so anytime she comes out to visit her family, I guess we'll try to make arrangements to get together, and maybe someday we'll get out to Calgary. And we've been to Calgary before. It's been many years, but it's quite a ways from here. It's a flight, yeah. It's about a 4-hour flight, I think, to Calgary and around that. And you don't want to go in the wintertime because Calgary is very cold in the winter, and yeah. But anyways, someday. Okay, so that was great to meet up with Kim. And as I said, check out the Quilter's Way. Check out Chatterbox Quilts. You won't be disappointed. Okay, so what's coming up? All right, so this is a busy week. A busy week because I've got so many things happening next weekend that I have to prep for this week. Next Saturday night, we're having what we call the gang dinner. There's 3 other couples that we get together with. We used to get together more regularly, but it's been a while. It's been about 2 years, I think, since we've all been together again. I think that was my 60th birthday when we did that. But what we've often done is we sort of rotate having everybody over for dinner. So we decided it's been long overdue and we need to have them here for dinner. So they're coming Saturday night. And when I give a dinner party, you have to do things, okay? I mean, yeah, there's lots of time to socialize and catch up and that, but I feel that as a host, I need to entertain to a certain degree. And so we usually have an art attack. The last couple of times we've done this, I've done different things more in the mixed media world. Well, now that I'm a quilter, guess what? We're doing something in the quilter's world. So we're going to make wall hangings. Very simple ones. It's all going to be fusible applique. I've prepared all the pieces and bits for them. So all they have to do is basically lay out these pieces, press them with an iron, bingo, presto, instant wall hanging kind of a deal. But it's for something a little different, a little bit fun. I also give swag bags. So I have different things, and I've shown them on a previous vlog that I've made up for everybody. We have drinks. We usually have special cocktails. I usually give them the name. We make them up and give them a name of something that goes along with whatever we're doing that's creative. So I guess we'll have like the 9-patch martini, the drunkards, something or other, this kind of thing, just for fun. And then we'll have dinner and everything. And yeah, food, wine, talk, fun. And of course, I'm going to have to give them a little quilt show. Yeah, they don't know what they're in for. So that's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that. But the next day, that's the Saturday, the next day, I'm teaching an art journaling class. We took our break over the summer, my ladies, my usual group that I have, and it starts up again where I do it the first Sunday of every month. So we're starting that back up next weekend. And I've got to get a few things prepared for that as well. So lots to do there. So it's going to be a busy time in this next week. And oh yes, speaking of the art journaling class, if you are a regular viewer of Stephen Walter Live, instead of at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time this coming Sunday, we'll be on 1 hour later, 5 o'clock, because my art journaling class runs from around 1 to 4, so I have to have a little bit of time for setup. Get home, get things set up. Okay, so anything else to tell you this week? Nope, I think that's got it. So I hope you have a great week. If you are a teacher and you're going back to school, good luck with your year. I hope it's a good one for you. And yeah, we'll see you next Monday, and we'll see you possibly on Sunday for Stephen and Walter Live at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. See you then. Bye-bye.